You know, when you travel as much as I do, people expect you to have a lot of answers. I don't mind telling you they throw me some mighty tough questions.
What kind of questions?
Oh, questions about conditions in Southeast Asia, fashions in Paris, what the Germans think of rearmament. You know, a reporter has to take a lot of notes to make sure that he does an accurate job. Very happy I had my notebook with me the other day. I was having dinner here with a friend of mine. My host started talking about beer. He asked me if I'd visited any of the large breweries in Europe, and when I told him I had, he began talking about brewing processes. Well, I told him I'd just been through a brewery here in Kansas City, and I had a full set of notes right here in my book with full reference on that subject.
Right here in the heart of America, I learned about the making of one of the world's truly premium beers. Beer that is made in part in a sparkling copper kettle. I looked upon this vast, gleaming expanse of metal and confessed to Muehlebach's internationally famous technical director, Karl Knepfel, that this was about all I knew about a brewery, that such kettles did exist. Karl spent hours showing me the brewing processes that make the essential difference between the premium brew he makes and ordinary beers. He invited me to open the doors and look into its massive interior, and I saw again the sparkle of clean copper. And Karl told me the great tube in the center was, in fact, a sort of percolator which creates a certain controlled turbulence when the wort is boiling. Karl Knepfel, as he told me of the brewing of premium beer, kept emphasizing the importance of quality raw materials and constant control of the beer-making process. Again and again, he reminded me, all this superb equipment means nothing unless the best, and nothing less than the best in barley malt, hops, refined grits, water, and knowledge are employed. He spoke of know-how as chief chemist Dr. Tibor Blau turned a valve that introduced steam into the kettle and started the carefully controlled boiling process. I learned that it boils like this for an average of 1.5 to 2 hours. Again, Knepfel repeated his words about control, always constant control. He showed me the charts and meters that keep a record of the exact temperature in the great kettle at any moment of the boiling process. Suddenly, I asked Karl, "What's that? What's he doing?" "Hops," he said. "Put on your topcoat. We'll show you." So I put on my woolen scarf and topcoat and entered a great cold room. Temperature was 35 degrees Fahrenheit. A husky brewer, using mechanized handling equipment, was moving 500-pound bales of imported hops. Hops grown on the fertile farms of Western Germany and Bavaria, carefully packed, carefully shipped, and carefully stored under proper temperature control. Brewmaster Gene Barrel cut the government red seal, which guarantees top quality, on an imported hop bale. And taking a handful of the delicate green buds, he rubbed them gently between his palms. And with evident pride and pleasure, breathed their rich bouquet. He invited me to do the same as he told me of the many kinds of domestic and imported hops available for brewing. Gene told me different kinds of hops are added at different intervals to bring out the distinct flavor of each kind of hops. Quality and control and the best of raw materials. Brewmaster Knepfel told me this over and over again. The best barley, he said, the best malt, and the best hops. And I have a note here in my book which reminds me that Karl Knepfel said, "and the best water." I asked, "Doesn't all water just come out of a faucet?" And Karl Knepfel said, "Yes, it did, but that kind of water simply could not be used for making his premium beer." He invited me to come with him again to the brew kettle, where he was to make an important test. Then he said he wanted to enlighten me on this matter of water. "This," said Karl, "is the flocculation test. And this, I learned, was where the brewmaster's experience paid off. By simply looking at the brew, he tells whether or not it is ready for the next step in the brewing process. And I learned that's not ordinary water in the brew. This was demonstrated for me by chemist Lois Hicks, who drew a sample of ordinary water from the faucet and tested it for suitability for brewing her company's premium beer. A high reading on the dial is unsatisfactory, and This is high. Knepfel pointed at a golden dial. This was the permutate water conditioner. It was the name of this massive complex of pipes and tanks. Many kinds of filtering processes take place here. Again, the matter of control was emphasized. The water used in brewing this premium beer was carefully treated in each section of the conditioner until it meets the high standards demanded by the brewery. Back in the laboratory, Lois Hicks ran another test on the processed water. The same instrument, the same dial settings, the same button pressed. The reading, low, virtually zero in those properties which are considered unacceptable in water for brewing premium beer. And in the process of brewing and brewing controls, various temperatures are needed, and strict control must be maintained over such temperatures. This is the massive machinery that makes this possible. As a former war correspondent, I began to look upon the laboratory as a sort of combat control center for the brewery. At least, I made such a comparison in my mind. Constant combat was being carried on against the possible infiltration of inferior materials, or perhaps undisciplined and unfriendly bacteria. Control was certainly maintained from this headquarters. Here, Miss Hicks, I was told, was making a protein test in order to determine the quality of malt. In the far corner of the laboratory, I saw Technical Director Knepfel and Chief Chemist Dr. Tibor Blau engaged in what appeared to be a delicate operation. Carl volunteered the information that a pure yeast evaluation was being performed. He called my attention to the glass case in which the action was being accomplished. He asked me to note the alcohol flame, the fact that Dr. Blau's hands alone entered the area where the bottles and flasks were located. Under absolutely sterile conditions, Dr. Blau carefully removed yeast from the pure culture which lies within this thin culture tube. The yeast is a tiny particle clinging to the fine wire on the end of the instrument. I watched it being carefully inserted into a flask of sterilized wort, and in answer to my questions, I learned that it begins to grow under absolute sterile conditions. I followed Knepfel out of the laboratory and to the top of the building, where he showed me a marvelous piece of machinery. This, I learned, is a wort separator. Centrifugal force is employed to clarify the hot wort that came here from the great copper kettle and send it to these stainless steel plate heat exchangers where the wort is cooled to that temperature required to start fermentation. Here is the chart which indicates the time and temperature of the wort cooling process. Control, control, control. This, I learned, is one of the cooling radiators. And these are glass-lined storage tanks where the beer is kept at proper temperature. Each holds over 32,000 gallons. The glass lining guarantees that no change will be made in the quality of the premium beer stored here. Transfer of the beer is accomplished through specially designed hoses which are connected and handled under strict sanitary methods. This, I learned, is a beer filter. There's nothing better than this unit anywhere in the world. This is the machine that guarantees the perfect clarity and brilliance found only in a premium beer. The beer comes from the great glass-lined storage tanks and goes through these filters en route to its final bottling. Control, said the technical director, and he meant it. And I was back in the laboratory watching tests with a sample of the finished brew. Here is a distillation test. And a test for acidity. A high reading on the dial is desired and achieved. This test fascinated me. This looked like the kind of a gadget one should have at home for pouring beer for a lot of thirsty guests. What's he doing? He, believe it or not, is testing a number of different brews to see just how much head develops in the glass. The technical name is a foam evaluation test.
Well, as you can see, there's no guesswork in making premium beer such as this. At every instant, those in command know what is happening. As a matter of fact, I was surprised to learn that there's so little waste in making beer. The spent grain, for example, is dried and it's used as cattle feed. I was even surprised to learn that they save the bubble. I call it the bubble. It's actually the CO2, the carbon dioxide, which is generated during the brewing process.
With scarf and topcoat, I was back in a cold room again, as Brewmaster Gene Barrell showed me the machine that purifies the natural carbon dioxide gas. Smell it, he said, and I did. And he pointed out that this was before it was purified. It was strong and heavy with the many odors of the brew. I sniffed it a second time after purification, and it was sweet as a spring morning. Looking to the ceiling in another room, I saw the tanks where the bubble, the natural carbon dioxide, is compressed until it is needed in the final processing. And I was told that only natural carbon dioxide is used. From cold room to washroom, I followed my guide. These are aluminum kegs. They are being washed. After this process, they are really clean. I learned the kegs go through 8 different stations where hot and cold water is injected under high pressure to accomplish the cleaning. All this accomplished by this beautifully coordinated machine. I ask 1,000 questions. What's he doing? Burning bungs for kegs, specially selected wood, each carrying a permanent record of the brew date. And this again is a part of quality control, control that means premium beer. Each keg is carefully lined with hot pitch, a resin which guards the brew's quality. A workman uses a bright light to check the evenness of pitching and cleanliness of the keg. He then drives in the new cork. And here I saw the kegs carefully filled with the finished beer. And this, I learned, is called racking. Knepfel, meantime, carefully checks the finished beer. An experienced eye is one of his priceless assets. He calls this swickling the brew. Ever try to wash a bottle? These bottles have been soaked in 6 different caustic solutions for about an hour and a half at temperatures up to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. They've been rinsed, brushed twice, and rinsed 6 times more. I was shown this filling operation. How fast? 300 bottles of beer filled per minute. Every little thing happens for a reason. Take the foam on the bottles. It has to be there. It gets there as a result of the carbon dioxide. Remember that stuff in the long, narrow tanks we saw a little while ago? It is shot into the bottle here, and that makes it foam. Why foam? To force air from the bottles. There must be no air in the beer when it is capped. This delicate operation is carefully supervised by expert bottle shop superintendent Al Steibel. Now the capped bottles are entering the pasteurization chamber. The beer was bottled at a temperature of about 34 degrees Fahrenheit. In this chamber, it will be heated to about 141 degrees, 20 minutes of heat, 20 minutes of cooling. After pasteurization comes control again, this in the form of a visual inspection. A bright light shines through the bottles. They are slowed down in their movement in order that a more careful study can be made. Next, I saw a marvelous machine that labeled the bottles. 8 at a time receive both neck and body label. Additionally, there is a control code date on the back of each label. All this in one operation. And finally, packed automatically. Next, I was shown the canning of this premium beer. Again, intricate machines did a difficult job very simply. Long lines of empty cans moved with surprising speed on conveyors. I was told these cans had just passed through a rinser, and here they're entering the filler. A filler with 60 spouts. This is the jetting operation. Natural carbon dioxide is shot into the can at this instant. Here, each can is weighed. It must contain a full 12 ounces, or it is automatically eliminated from the line at this point. Again, control. This is a small code wheel which code dates each can. Another difficult job done easily by a wonderful machine. 24 cans packed automatically in each carton. Here I saw the well-known 6-pack carton completed. I had a hard time drawing myself away from this unit, for as you can see, it takes the flat carton, forms it, fills it, and sends it on its way. I saw an ingenious gluing machine. 48 cans in the cartons on the right, 24 cans on the left. And this machine, too, stamps a code which shows the date of packing, so the premium beer is ready for distribution. Distribution by a fleet of the finest trucks to be found anywhere. Rolling units that daily fan out over the heart of America to deliver this premium beer.
Little wonder it's a great beer, a premium beer. Little wonder they say beer belongs. It does belong, you know. It belongs in family groups such as this. It's enjoyed by virtually the entire family. It's seen in the best taverns, served in the best hotels and restaurants, and it's enjoyed in get-togethers such as this in Kansas City's famed Cypress Room.
Beer is a temperate drink enjoyed by all. A premium beer is one of life's great pleasures. A pleasure to serve. A pleasure to taste. The glass this man drinks just didn't happen. Little wonder he shakes his head and says, I can't believe they can make it so good. A true premium beer.